How much money do you think you need in the bank before you stop feeling broke? Most people say 1 million. Some say 500,000. A lot of people say they just need to make more money, get a raise, find a better job, maybe hit 6 figures someday, and then they'll feel okay. But here's what nobody talks about. There's a number, a specific number, and it's not $1 million. It's not even close. It's $20,000. And I know what you're thinking. 20,000? That's it? That's barely a used car. But stay with me, because what happens to your brain, your decisions, your confidence, and your entire financial trajectory when you hit that number for the first time? It's something that most people never get to experience. And the ones who do, they describe it almost like a before and after, like two completely different lives. This video is about that line, what it feels like before it, what changes after it, and why crossing it might be the single most important financial moment of your life. Here's something that financial experts rarely talk about. And honestly, I think it's because most of them forgot what it actually felt like to be broke. Money doesn't just exist in your bank account. It exists in your head. And the way money lives in your head determines almost every decision you make about your job, your relationships, your risks, your future. Almost everything. Most people walk around thinking about money in terms of income. If I just earn more, everything will be fine. But income is only part of the equation. What actually changes your psychology, what actually rewires how you think, is accumulated savings. The number sitting in your account when nothing is coming in. Think of it like levels in a game. And I mean this literally. At the bottom level, the level most Americans are stuck at, you're in survival mode. You're not thinking about the future. You're not thinking about investments or opportunities or career moves. You're thinking about this week. You're thinking about whether your rent clears before your paycheck hits. You're thinking about whether the car is going to make it another month. You're in pure reaction mode all day, every day. Then there's growth mode, where you're thinking in months, not days, where you're asking different questions. Not can I survive this, but how do I build something? And the invisible threshold between those two modes? For most people, it's right around that $20,000 mark. It's not a magic number. It's a psychological one. And once you understand why it works, you'll never think about money the same way again. Let's be real about what life looks like below that line. Imagine you've got maybe $800 in your checking account. Rent is due in 12 days. Your car registration is past due. Your phone bill is coming up. And your transmission just started making that sound. You know the sound, the one you pretend you don't hear, because you can't afford to know what it means. So what do? You don't fix the transmission. You can't. You drive carefully and pray it holds together. You go to work and smile and do your job, and nobody looking at you would ever guess that inside there's a constant low-level noise in your head, like a radio stuck between stations. Just this relentless hum of financial anxiety. This is what living below the $20,000 threshold actually feels like, and it's not just uncomfortable. It's cognitively expensive. There's a fascinating body of research out of Princeton University, and I'll keep this simple, that shows financial scarcity literally reduces your available mental bandwidth. It's like try to run 20 apps on your phone while it's at 4% battery. Everything slows down. Decision-making gets worse. Creativity drops. You start making choices that you know aren't smart, but you make them anyway because the short-term pressure is just too loud. You take the payday loan because rent is due today and you'll figure out later. You put the groceries on the credit card even though you already have a balance. You say yes to the overtime shift, even though it means you can't go to your friend's birthday. Your social life, your relationships, slowly starting to narrow. And here's the part that really gets me. When you're in survival mode, you don't just make worse financial decisions. You avoid thinking about money altogether, because thinking about it hurts. So you don't check your bank account until you have to. You don't look at your credit score. You don't open the bills right away. You put it all in a drawer, literally and mentally, because ignorance feels better than that punch in the gut every time you look at the numbers. And that avoidance, that's what keeps people stuck for years. Not laziness, not stupidity. Fear, pure, exhausting financial fear. Now, here's where things get interesting. The moment your savings account crosses that $20,000 threshold, something shifts. And I don't mean gradually. People who've been through it will tell you, it almost feels like a click. Suddenly, you check your bank account more. You actually want to look at it, because looking at it doesn't feel like punishment anymore. It feels like confirmation, like proof that you're doing something right. Your decisions slow down, in a good way. Before, when something went wrong, car breaks down, medical bill shows up, unexpected expense of any kind, your nervous system would spike. Full panic. Worst case scenario thinking. How am I going to handle this? But after $20,000, your brain actually starts processing those situations differently. Not because the problem is smaller, because your brain has evidence that you can handle things. Psychologists call this self-efficacy, the belief, based on actual experience, that you are capable of navigating challenges. And money in the bank is one of the most powerful sources of that belief. You stop taking jobs out of desperation. You stop staying in situations, whether financial or personal, just because you feel like you have no other option. Options. That's what $20,000 really buys you. Not luxury, not status. Options. And confidence follows options. Quietly, without fanfare, you start walking a little differently through your own life. You negotiate differently. You speak up in conversations you previously would have stayed quiet in. You say no to things you would have said yes to before, just because you were scared to lose the income, the decisions that used to take weeks of agonizing. Should I leave this job? Should I move? Should I invest in this course? Those decisions start becoming clearer, faster. Your brain is no longer running on emergency power. And when your brain isn't in survival mode, it can finally think about the future. Here's something I really want you to understand, because I think it's the most underexplained concept in personal finance. The first $20,000 takes the longest, and I mean that almost mathematically. Let's say you're saving $500 a month. To get from $0 to $20,000, that's about 40 months. 3.5 years. That's a long time. That's a long time to stay disciplined when you can't really see the results, when emergencies keep eating into it, when it feels like you're running on a treadmill. But here's what happens next. Once you got $20,000, and let's say you put into a high-yield savings account earning around 4 to 5% interest, which is very realistic, you're now earning roughly $80 to $100 a month just from interest, just from existing. You didn't pick up a shift. You didn't hustle. The money just made more money. That sounds small, but psychologically, it's enormous, because now your savings is not just a number you're adding to manually every month. It's a living thing. It's growing on its own. And the more it grows, the more it grows. This is compound interest. And yes, you've heard about 1,000 times, but I want you to really feel what it means when it's your money doing it. From $20,000 to $40,000, that's now going to happen faster, because you've got momentum. You've got a psychological baseline. You've got the habits built. You've got the confidence to keep going. That first $20,000 took you 3.5 years. The next $20,000? Maybe 2. The one after that? Less. This is why wealthy people say the first big milestone is the hardest. Not because of math, because of psychology. Because you're not just saving money. You're building a completely different relationship with money from the ground up. And that relationship is what accelerates everything else. Let's talk about something deeper for a minute. Because saving $20,000 isn't just a financial achievement. It's an identity achievement. Think about everything you had to not do to get there. You didn't book that impulsive vacation when everyone else was going. You didn't upgrade your car when yours was still running. You made your lunch instead of grabbing Chipotle every single day. You said no to things that felt small in the moment, but added up to something enormous over time. And here's the thing about that. Every time you made the harder choice, every time you chose the future over the present, you were quietly, slowly becoming a different person. Delayed gratification is not just a skill. It's a character trait. And like every character trait, it gets stronger the more you exercise it. The person who reaches $20,000 in savings is genuinely not the same person who started at zero. They've proven something to themselves. They've shown themselves that they can think long-term, that they can follow through, that they're the kind of person who keeps their word to themselves. That proof? You can't buy it. You can't shortcut it. You have to earn it, slowly and honestly. And that's what nobody tells you about financial milestones. It's not about the money. It's about the discipline becoming part of who you are. It's about realizing that you are capable of building something from nothing, which means once you really internalize that, there's almost nothing you can't build. Now, let's talk about what actually starts to open up. Before $20,000, your career choices are constrained. You need the paycheck. So you stay. You stay in the job that's draining you. You stay in the role that's not growing you. You stay in the city that's not right for you anymore. Because the alternative, the uncertainty, the gap period, the transition, feels too risky when your bank account is running on fumes. After $20,000, the math changes. You could take 6 weeks off if you really needed to and not lose your apartment. That's not wealth, but that's runway. And runway is everything when it comes to opportunity. You can say yes to the unpaid internship that leads somewhere real. You can take the commission-based role that everyone told you was too risky. You can enroll in the certification program. You can actually explore, because you have enough cushion to absorb the short-term discomfort of pursuing the long-term gain. Your risk tolerance genuinely shifts, not because you're braver, but because you have evidence that you can land on your feet. The money in your account is basically a translation of trust in yourself, and that changes which doors you're willing to knock on. I want to spend a second on something I call walkaway power, because it might be the most underrated concept in personal finance. Walkaway power is exactly what it sounds like. It's the ability, real or theoretical, to walk away from something if it's not right for you. Before $20,000? You don't have it. Not really. Your boss knows it, even if they never say it. You know it, and that dynamic shows up in 1,000 invisible ways. In how you respond when something unfair happens, in whether you speak up in that meeting, in whether you push back when they offer you a raise that doesn't actually reflect your value. People who are financially desperate negotiate from fear. People who have a financial cushion negotiate from worth. And here's the wild part. You don't even have to use the walkaway power for it to work. The simple knowledge that you could leave if you needed it changes how you carry yourself. It changes the energy you bring into a performance review. It changes how much you're willing to tolerate. And people, your manager, your clients, your colleagues, they feel that shift even if they can't name it. Money in the bank doesn't just affect your finances. It affects your posture. Okay, I have to be honest with you about something. Because reaching $20,000 is incredible, but it also comes with a trap, and it catches a lot of people, even smart, disciplined people. The trap is this: you spend it, not all at once. Obviously, it's more subtle than that. You've been depriving yourself for years. You've been saying no. You've been watching other people take trips and buy things and live their lives while you quietly transferred money into savings every month. And then you hit $20,000 and something inside you says, I earned this. I deserve to enjoy this. And you do. You absolutely do. But then the new car payment shows up, or the bigger apartment, or the wardrobe upgrade. And 1 year after hitting $20,000 the first time, you're back at $8,000. Still proud of yourself, still doing better than before. But you gave away the momentum. You gave away the compound effect. You stepped off the escalator just as it was starting to move. This is called lifestyle inflation. And it is the silent killer of financial progress in this country. The key, and this is important, is to celebrate the milestone without consuming it. Find a version of reward that doesn't require you to cash out your progress. A weekend trip, a nice dinner, something that marks the moment without undoing the work. Protect the first $20,000 with everything you have. Let it become $25,000, then $30,000. Because the real power doesn't come from having $20,000. It comes from the person you become while building it and the momentum you create by not stopping. I want to leave you with this. $20,000 will not make you rich. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it will. You can't retire on it. You can't quit your job tomorrow. It won't solve every problem you have, but it will do something that no amount of motivational content, no self-help book, no financial seminar has ever been able to do. It will prove to you that you are not the person you were when you started. There's a moment, and if you haven't had it yet, I genuinely hope you do, where you open your banking app and the number starts with 2 and ends with something over 0. And you just sit there for a second, and it's quiet, and it's yours. You built it out of discipline and patience and 100 small choices that nobody saw and nobody praised you for. That moment, that quiet, private moment, changes the way you see yourself forever, not because of the number, but because of what the number represents. It represents every time you chose your future self over your present self. It represents every time the noise in your head told you to give up and you didn't. It represents the beginning of a financial life that isn't built on fear. And here's the thing. Once you cross that line, you can never fully go back to the person who hadn't. The mindset stays. The identity stays. The habits stay. Even if life throws something at you and the account drops, and sometimes it will, you now know with absolute certainty that you can build it back because you already did. That knowledge, that unshakable, hard-earned knowledge, that's the real $20,000 milestone. Not the money, the person you had to become to earn it. Now go get it.